and what your access is or isn't in the public square, and what you can do about it, and how to be diverse and broad, but also get your personal rights, your religious freedoms exercised in a way that's balanced and fair for everybody, but doesn't trounce on your rights to access as well. So, Bill,
Charlie,
a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Christians in the public square.
You bet. Well, the first thing I want to do is invite everyone who's watching to a breakfast on October the 26th at the Chase Center in Wilmington. The breakfast is free, but we have assembled a panel of leaders from Delaware's faith community to talk about this very issue, Christians in the public square. What does that mean? What should a Christian's involvement in government look like? Is it imposing their views on people who aren't Christian for them to be involved or to carry those values into the public square? And so we have representatives from a whole different array of faiths coming on board. Some of them you probably know, Pastor Clarence Pettit, Reverend Clifford Johnson from Spirit of Life Lutheran and Shiloh Baptist here in Wilmington. And we have other faiths represented, and these folks are going to get together. They're very well known in their communities. They're leaders in their churches, and they're going to get together, and it's a free event, and they're going to discuss this issue. We'll be offering breakfast, which is always a positive.
Always food. Food's always good.
If you want people to come out, you offer them free food. That's always a positive.
Well, I tell you, Reverend Cliff Johnson and I have walked a very similar path, and I admire him greatly. Consider him a friend, and we spoke not too long ago on a couple things, but. He was an early charter school advocate, and had a charter school going, and ran into some of the political buzzsaws in the sort of earlier phases of the charter school laws and implementation in Delaware, and it was during the Minter administration, and I think that they were unfairly thwacked. I mean, there were some issues there, but I'll tell you, as somebody who was walked that path, frankly, after Reverend Johnson cleared some of the debris for me, making my path a little easier. We have had a struggle all along, and we've had actually, I think, a Department of Education that's been very, very balanced in trying to help us along. And I don't think he faced such again, the Department of Education has followed the rules and those kinds of things.
It's different now than it was.
But they haven't, I don't think, been quite as actively against what we're trying to do as they were. So I thank Reverend Johnson and the folks at Shiloh for the early work they did in sort of clearing a path for those of the rest of us to follow, because the charter school movement and trying to bring true educational choice and educational opportunity to every student in the state of Delaware, not just the wealthy that can go to the private schools, and not just those who can afford parochial schools, but to every student. And he was an early adopter and fought the good fight to help the rest of us. So I know that's not related to what you're doing, but it's one of my passions.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, in a way, it is. So I think Reverend Johnson is someone of a singular courage, and I've gotten to work with him pretty closely, and he's someone who has a business background like yourself, who felt the call to the ministry, and has worked very closely with the Rosen of Prayer to meet needs in the public of others, and that's obviously that's a very core part of Christianity, and it's part of people who try to follow the teachings of the Bible. They want to try to figure out what's the best way for us to be compassionate, to do unto others as I'd want them done to me, in a way that's also respectful, and that's basically what this event is about. And Reverend Johnson has been a very steady presence, very calm presence, and he's someone who has basically walked that walk and done it in the educational context. So this breakfast is a chance for the pastors to get together, but also people from all these different denominations, so Baptists, Lutherans, Catholics, whatever, to come together and sit down and say, well, you know, my passion is education. That's my interest. What does it mean for me, you know, to be, you know, a practicing Christian and to bring that into my passion for public education? A Rose and a Prayer does a lot of work for pregnant women in the city of Wilmington and in the whole state of Delaware, specifically with regards to, you know, getting them resources. You know, if they're in a crisis pregnancy and they would want to keep their baby, how can we help them do that? How can we build a culture that is basically pro-woman in every sense? And so, how can we basically be more supportive of women? And that's, how do you do that and carry your values into that sphere? Or in business, you know, Reverend Johnson has a very successful career in business.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did.
And you know, it used to be, you know, growing up, I always heard, excuse me, that business people were kind of cutthroat, and it was very kind of like the movie Wall Street.
Right.
And but
well, that is the Hollywood version.
Oh.
Of course, the Hollywood businesses are run by cutthroat people.
Sure. But the older I got, the more I realized, and I got to know a lot of business owners, that, you know, the people who really do well in business are people who look at their business and see it as basically an arena for good work that they can do, and I think Reverend Johnson is another one of those people.
Well, you know, you talk about business, religion, politics, and how, you know, are all business people cutthroat? Gimme, gimme, gimme! I'm going to take everything I can, and the heck with the rest of you. And the truth is that's an easy caricature, mm-hmm. because you can see these guys on Wall Street, mm-hmm. You can see some of the big corporate leaders that clearly have accumulated, you know, a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But you know, the vast majority of businesses, I mean, that's one out of 1,000 businesses, mm-hmm. is that, you know, are run by good people. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, look, truth of the matter is, you're born naked and you die naked, and in between, the only thing you carry is your reputation. Mm. And you look at Reverend Johnson, and here's somebody that was successful in business, but had a calling. And I think, frankly, if you look at any of the members of your panel, whether it's Father Klein or
Pastor Belay,
right, yep. or Reverend Pettit, that you know, being true to oneself, which in the broadest definition of that, which is outreach to your community, to your faith, being true to yourself, is what Christianity and probably most faiths are about. But how do you take that to the next level and be inclusive and help others, whether it's to help support the whole woman through education, through job opportunity. Through mm-hmm. Success and self-esteem, mm-hmm. Or whether it's through something else. I mean, those are all important facets.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned taking it to the next level. And so right now in the United States, and especially in Delaware, there's a lot of conversation about that. You know, what does it mean to be Christian in the public square? What is an appropriate way to carry our values out there to help others? Because that's what we want to do. But there are lots of good ideas out there that, when they're implemented, don't always have the best results.
Right.
So this breakfast on Wednesday, October the 26th, at the Chase Center in Wilmington. It'll start at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's when registration starts, and it will finish up by 9 a.m. So if you need to get to work, if you have to get someone to school, you can come on out from 7 to 8:30, and you can leave by 9, and you can be where you need to go. So it's early in the morning, but there's the free breakfast, and we're really hoping this can be an opportunity, a springboard for people to get together, to sit down, to enjoy some fellowship with each other, some breakfast, some coffee, and then listen to some great leaders of different faiths in Delaware and talk about what does this look like. And they're going to offer it from different perspectives. So I don't think it's going to be just kind of a one message that's going to be pushed out there. It's going to be, well, in my faith tradition, this has been our traditional approach. But I do think there's a need for it because, if you look in the book of Hosea, there's a line that's pretty well quoted. That's, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge," and that can be applied to so many different things. Like in your previous segment with education, very concretely, what happens to a people when they don't have an education? What happens to a community when it ceases to be educated about some of the grave threats facing it? So this is really an opportunity to answer that need and to get people of goodwill together for a fantastic breakfast together, and hopefully to come out with some positive ideas on how these people can materially impact the state of Delaware for the better.
Talk to me a little bit about how did a Rose and a Prayer come to this idea about hosting a breakfast and having leaders from 4 different faiths talk about Christianity in the public square, what it means to them, and have sort of a cross-faith dialogue? How did you get there? It's a little bit different than some of the previous things that you've been involved with.
That's very true. And actually, it is an interesting story lately, and it really has to do a lot with the national issues facing the United States. So with some of the new health care law, a lot of that has come up with, well, if you're a religious hospital or a religious institution, you have to provide certain services in your health care. And so take the example of, say, an abortion service, an abortion procedure that a lot of Christians would be very uncomfortable with performing themselves. Parts of the law said that we're considering having them be required to perform that, which is against their conscience and not something they want to have to do. And for the law to say you have to do this even though your religious faith says that it's wrong and that you shouldn't do it, well, that's not fair, and that's not respectful to people who practice that faith, whatever faith it is.
Right.
And there's been kind of a lot of that going on at the national level, and then some of it at smaller levels here in Delaware. And sometimes there's an attitude that people who follow their faith are, must not be as well informed or as well educated as other people when it comes to making different kinds of policy decisions. And I think that's a misnomer, and that is largely inaccurate, and that
the truth is there are ignorant people of
everywhere.
all faiths and non-faiths and everything else, but some of the most intelligent people I have ever met are religious leaders. I mean, their knowledge of history, their knowledge of philosophy, their knowledge of cultures,
sociology, psychology.
Yeah, I mean, it requires you don't get to those positions of leadership and be an idiot. Now, are there populists out there who cult of personality and absolutely,
unfortunately,
but I can find the 1% in any population of people who are, we talked about corporate leaders and they're all greedy. Well, no, that's the Hollywood portrayal, and I think the reason Hollywood gets away with portraying them that way is because they all sit around in their offices, and many of them are exactly that way. I'm like, well, of course they're all greedy.
Well, this is a real easy part to write because I know this guy.
Well, I mean, there was a lawsuit between 2 people in the Disney company that was here in Delaware about 4 or 5 years ago because of that. 2 guys that were they hated one another, but they had lots of money tied up in Disney, and it was big. So we had Mickey Mouse down in southern Delaware. So anyway. So they're
you're absolutely right. And whether it's there are all kinds of more famous examples. People like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was well known for his work in World War II and articulating just why it was that the Nazis were doing was absolutely terrible, and then going back and ultimately giving his life for that. Or whether it's like when I was writing up the bios for the people on this panel, because we have to present their bio, and I was floored by their wealth of experience. And just their education and
Father Klein brings a very unique perspective as a Catholic priest who was a Lutheran before, and you got a Lutheran in Pastor Pettit that'll be there,
right?
And so a very different dynamic that in that whole discussion,
right. So these are some very bright people offering well thought out philosophical, theological arguments, drawing on their faith tradition.
And they're all from our community.
They're from our community.
Live in the community and are fighting for improvement in the community.
You bet.
So The date again is?
October the 26th.
October 26th.
And so if you're interested in coming, if you would like to come, and if you've never come to an event before, don't even worry about it. Just come on out to the Chase Center on October the 26th. And the only thing that we really ask is that you RSVP. And you can do that by calling 302-525-4655. Just let us know that you would like to come. If you would like to bring friends, family, a relative, that would be fantastic. It is open to everyone, people of every faith, people of no faith who may be curious, what are these Christians up to? What is their game plan for Delaware? We encourage you to come out and to have breakfast with us and to hear these people speak. So it's, again, Wednesday, October the 26th, from 7 to 9 a.m. Registration will start at 7. People will be milling around, talking, doing that Delaware thing.
Right.
And the program will begin at 7:30. And actually, we are pleased to have the Bishop of Wilmington, Bishop Malooly, for the Catholic Diocese will be there. He will give the invocation. So really, we got a lot of people coming together for...
You guys have just been dragging in the big heavy hitters.
Yeah, for a good time.
I've not met Bishop Malooly, but I've heard that he is an extremely intelligent and settled, comfortable, very just pastoral.
It's good for people in that line of work.
It is. Well, but not everybody in that line of work has that.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Yeah.
And that's it. We're all people, and we're all sinners in God's eyes. So, but I think, from my understanding is, and as I'd like to tell people, I'm an Episcopalian. We're dysfunctional Catholics. We put fun in dysfunctional, but. That is a skill set that is unique in people, and I think it's great for Wilmington to have that type of a person leading such an important organization.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and it is interesting because if you look, if you enjoy history, you see that when the United States of America was being started, you had a lot of people from Europe come and observing this new country, one of whom was Alexis de Tocqueville, and he wrote probably one of the best works on the United States, democracy in America, and he traveled the United States at that time. He was fascinated. I don't think he was 30 when he did it. He was a very young man.
Yeah.
And one of his observations was, he says, people in the United States, they practice their faith. He said, and that makes them great. And what's really great about it is that they can practice any kind of faith that they want. And they have a really healthy respect here for freedom in a way that at that time you could not find in Europe. This state
still can't.
This state was a Catholic state. This state was, French Calvinist Huguenots. This was, it's different here, and there's a place for everyone here, and that's part of what makes
America great.
America, and that's why I love living here.
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do.
Well, I appreciate, Bill, you coming in and talking about
so
this breakfast you've got coming up.
You bet.
Christians in the Public Square. I wanted to take a few minutes, the last remaining minutes, and talk a little bit about protests in America, and specifically the Occupy Wall Street